For centuries, the land had been neglected. Fertile fields turned to desert. The people dispersed. Israel lived in the prayers and dreams of Jews in the diaspora. And some of these dreamers, burning with the fiery new politics that swept across Europe, came to try to turn their ideals into reality. They stayed. Through Turkish occupation and British mandate, they lived as farmers in isolated villages and settlements, reclaiming and cultivating the land, firm in their dedication to the idea that Israel would be reborn as a free nation among the nations of the world. A state for the stateless and a home for the homeless. And the stateless and the homeless came. By the end of the Second World War, a new kind of immigrant came to Israel, the shattered remnant of European Jewry. They came, illegally, clutching their pitiful belongings, and found not a haven, but new hardships, new hazards, new demands. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of Oriental Jews from North Africa and the Middle East were streaming into Israel, looking for a hope for the future. They worked and fought, they overcame, and then they celebrated. The unrelenting dream of the pioneer was realized. The State of Israel was established. The responsibilities of statehood meant building houses, industry, public services, communication and transport facilities. All this, as well as the overwhelming task of accepting immigrants from all countries and in all conditions, and welding them into a nation. How do you go about building a state? What is your plan? What are your raw materials? Where is your factory? How do you get the best of both worlds? These boys are the raw material from which a nation is built. Moroccans, Kurds, Romanians, and Yemenites. What they all have in common is their orthodoxy. The boys divide their time between the religious seminary and the workbench. They read their daily page of Holy Writ and then pass to the intricacies of modern technology. The vocational training school where they study is an ORT school. ORT means Organization for Rehabilitation Through Training, and it was established more than 85 years ago in Tsarist Russia to train Jews in agricultural and manual trades. Today, nearly half of the vocational training schools at secondary level in Israel are ORT schools. Vocational training in Israel still means the basic trades, general and precision mechanics, tool-making and agro-mechanics, radio and electronics, refrigeration and air conditioning, auto mechanics and communications. The task ORT faces is to teach these skills to boys and girls from 70 different countries who have barely acquired a common language, Hebrew, in elementary school. Now ORT must train them to take their part in a modern industrial society. Barrow lives in Jaffa with his mother and father, his 4 brothers and his sister. He and his family have always lived here. All the children were born in this house. Now, life is a little better, and there's a little more room since 2 of the older boys have married and set up housekeeping on their own. Barrow's father remembers when this was a single-family home set in the midst of orange groves. Today it is a substandard tenement with 4 families occupying the space that was formerly allotted to 1. This family is glad to be in Israel. They are one of the many Arab families that elected to stay after the establishment of independence.
الحمد لله. وينك ما طولت ما اجيتش؟ فكر يلا فكر الباب.
Barrow's father used to work in the port of Jaffa. He's very proud of that, but today the port is closed and he's unemployed. Now the family lives on his small pension and what little his older sons can contribute from their salaries. There are more than 200,000 Christian and Muslim Arabs living in Israel, making up 11% of the population. To become productive, the boys and girls of these families need education and training. Ort is doing its best to supply vocational training in this vital area of need. This is Barrow's school. It is the Joseph Shapiro Center in Abu Kabir, between Jaffa and Tel Aviv, near the site where the first Ort school was set up in Israel in 1949. It is an ultra-modern educational plant and part of the network of apprenticeship centers being built. In Israel, secondary education has to be paid for. Barrow is lucky. He wants to be an electrician, and somehow, through partial scholarship and subsidy, and considerable sacrifice on the part of his parents, he will achieve his ambition. Other students learn trades through apprenticeship. Boys and girls spend 5 days a week on the job, and 1 full day in the classroom, learning the theory that will be applied later on the factory or workshop floor. Ort's network of apprenticeship centers offer a chance to many young people, formerly barred from the advancement that can only come through education. Joseph is from Tunisia. His family came to Israel in 1949, and Joseph studies mechanics at an Ort school. When he graduates, he will work at the biggest car assembly plant in the country, far from the village and his mother's brood of chickens. What is happening to Joseph's family is typical of thousands who have come to Israel in the past 18 years. The children are the go-betweens, the interpreters, explaining the new society to their parents. Joseph's future world of production schedules, quotas and exports is remote from his parents, and it is his job to bridge that gap and maintain the family continuity. Absorption of immigrants depends on 3 factors: jobs, housing, and education. Shortages or a lack of any one of these 3 can slow or stop the absorption of newcomers. Meir is a case in point. He is studying refrigeration at an Ort school. Meir and his 7 brothers and sisters were born in Israel. Their parents came here in 1951 as refugees from Iraq and began the painful changeover to a new life in a new country. The story of their journey on the road to integration is the story of thousands of others who have made and are making the same trip. And these pitfalls and problems are the essence of the 2 Israels. Oriental and North African families make up the majority of Israel's population. Average size of an African-Asian family is 6. Of a Western family, 3 to 4. Average number of rooms, 1 1/2 for Oriental Jews and 2 for Westerners. Earnings follow the same pattern. Meir's mother, Amuna, wants 2 more things from life. She would like to see her family in a roomier home, and she wants her youngest son, Chaim, to go to high school as he himself wishes. Meanwhile, this family lives out the desperate statistics and the reality of the 2 Israels. Meir's father is 62 years old. In Iraq, he ran a small cafe. Here, he works for Mars, the Department of Public Works, and earns 300 Israeli pounds a month. Here is the problem of absorption in capsule form. Overcrowding, low income, lack of skills, lack of education. By 1970, high school numbers will be doubled. A higher birth rate among Oriental Jews means that most of these children will come from homes like this. One breakthrough is a plan prepared late in 1965 aimed at overcoming the high school bottleneck. It is designed as a combined operation of the Israeli government and the Israel Education Fund. Ort has agreed with the Ministry of Education to double the number of vocational high school students from 7,500 to 15,000 by 1970. Too often, students have been the sons of comfortably off families, from homes where learning and the habits of learning are taken for granted. Israel's challenge, and Ort's challenge, is to extend this habit of learning to those not so privileged. There is neither time nor reason for an educational elite. Future skilled workers and technicians should come from all sectors of the population. The Singalovsky School on the outskirts of Tel Aviv is Ort's largest center. It is the largest trade school in the Middle East. In addition to lower-level courses, there is a newly organized Teachers Training Institute, advanced courses in telecommunications and television, and large production-style machine shops. Beryl, Joseph and Meir are just 3 of Ort Israel's 25,000 students and apprentices. Their parents are happy to be part of Israel. Most Oriental families come from communities that are primitive, and they are aware that the opportunities for the future are greater for their European neighbors than for themselves. They look forward not only to better housing and more comfortable living, but to something more basic, equality. And equality can only be achieved through education. Ort is helping the people of Israel to wipe out this inequality that divides the educational elite from the educationally underprivileged, to achieve what the pioneers of Israel and of Ort envisaged: the dignity and independence for all men that that can only come through the full use of each man's abilities.